So welcome. Okay, so welcome to today's talk, which is about prana. So the main aim is to understand what prana is and to get a deeper understanding of what it means. So obviously it's a term that I use quite a lot in the asana class, and it's a term that we all always use, but actually what does it mean? And so to be able to understand about prana, we're going to look at our experience of prana first. So about prana in our bodies and how we experience it. And this is probably the more common usage of prana that we are all fairly familiar with. And then the actual meaning of prana is what exactly is that prana and where does it come from? So we experience it inside of us, but what actually is it and where does it come from is the question that we are also going to try and answer today. So as an introduction to prana, so as we know, prana has the ability to move into different areas of the body, and depending on demand. So it is a little bit more than breath. It's not just the breath, but it is the energy that makes everything work in our body and in the universe as well. So really everything depends on prana. And it is also important to understand that it has the capacity to move into different areas of the body depending on the demand. So when we are wanting to kind of lift our hand, so the prana goes to that movement to make it actually do what we want it to do. And so and when we are fighting a disease or an injury, then prana works through the immune system to help the body mend. So really prana just can be directed to different parts of the body, and it always is happening even when we don't know about it. So all the things that we think just happen automatically in our body, then that happens due to prana, and this is the process with which all these things happen in our body when we're asleep or when we're just not aware of it at all. So when an organ gets less prana or excess prana without real control, then disease may occur. So too much prana is also a bad thing, or especially if we don't know how to use that excess prana, it can be problematic. And obviously less prana is also problematic in our lives. And so science really focuses mainly or only on the physical body. But in yoga, we also focus on what we call the pranic body, or the subtle body, which we've seen before, or the pranamaya kosha. So that's the when we talked about kosh, we said there were 5 of them. So there is the food sheath, and then there is the pranamaya kosh. So that's and then there is the manomaya kosh, and then the Vijnanamaya kosh, and then the Anandamaya kosh. So these are the 5 kosha that we've looked at before. So also, I mean, in the English language, it's interesting to see that we don't really have a word, a translation for what prana is, but we refer to it in some of our expressions. So sometimes when we kind of use, you know, the expression that we need to recharge our batteries. So, you know, things like that. So what we are actually doing by recharging our batteries is slightly different to what the mobile phone does, but we are replenishing on prana. So that's what this means. So, or sometimes we kind of feel really low or down or just very tired, and that would be because of low prana flowing in the body as well. So that so we do in language kind of refer to it, you know, and also in terms of medicine and medication, we also know that that medicine cannot look into the subtle body to explain some of these things. So nowadays we know that there are a lot of conditions that are that are medically unexplained symptoms. And so people don't really know what they are, and scientists can't find out what they might be. But in a lot of these situations, the problem would be in the pranic body or in the subtle body, rather than in the physical body. So therefore, it is important to understand that you know, even though science can't explain it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And also we have seen in the last decades or so a rise in autoimmune diseases, and a lot of it is due to imbalance and in the pranic body and the prana not flowing properly, rather than actually a pathological kind of disorder that people can or that medicine can put its fingers on to explain what is going on. So, and so how this prana gets absorbed into various places. So the energy of the prana, if you like, I'm using the term energy here, but and it is absorbed by the cells of living things through what we call naris. So naris are subtle channels that go through the body. So they're not exactly veins at all, but they're just channels through which this prana circulates in the body. And so there are approximately 72,000 naris in the body. So these little channels that go all throughout, transporting prana everywhere. So so there are three main naris, and one of them is called, the main one is called Sushumna, and the other two are called Ida and Pingala. So I'm not going to go into too much details of the naris for today, but the only important thing to understand is that the naris are actually what is carrying this prana to the rest of the body, if you like, the channel through which this is happening. Then so chakras as well are located in the nadis. So what chakras are? They are energy centers at various points within the body, and they are situated in various locations. And again, today I'm not going to talk a lot in detail about this, but just so that you know that there is a whole system to explain all this. So there would be one time when we will go into detail about chakras and nadis. So any blockages in all these energy passages, if you like, can actually affect the flow of prana in our body. And that is where we can have a lot of problems. So physical problems, we can have a lot of emotional problems as well, that can happen. And that's because the naris are blocked and the prana is not flowing into the body at all, or to certain places within the body. So this is just a quick diagrammatic representation of the main naris. So here, that if you can see this black line here, so that goes in the middle of the body on the spinal column, and this is the Sushumna Nadi, which is the main nadi, and then there is there is the red one, which is called Pingala Nadi. So it moves from here, and then it goes all the way up to the top of the body. And then on this side, there is the blue line, dark blue line here, which is the Ida Nadi that moves through all these centers. So these little dots here are actual representations of these. So this is not absolutely accurate, but anyway, you can get an idea of what it is. So the base chakra, if you like, or the Muladhara chakra, stands here, and that's at the perineum or at the cervix. And then there is one which is around the bottom of the spine, and then there is the navel, and then there is the heart center, and then this is the throat center. and then the point between the eyebrows, and then on top of the head, so just above the head. So these are the various chakras, which we will look into in a lot more detail in due course. But for now, this is kind of how a little depiction of how the prana flows in the body. So so this is slightly confusing, but then the 5 pranas the pranas that are experienced in the body is responsible for all the functions of the body and the mind. And without a prana, we won't be able to feel any sensations that we feel. I'll talk about that in a bit more detail. And thanks to prana, we can have different feelings, which is like hunger, thirst, digestion, thinking, heart function, breathing, the immune system, and growth of the body. So all this happens in the body only because of prana. And it is also important to say that energy of particular foods also affect the flow of prana. So there is some food that are more conducive to how the prana flows and gives a little bit more prana to the body, and some that don't. And again, this we've seen before as well, and we've seen that there are sattvic food and rajasic food and tamasic food. So the sattvic kind of keeps us in a state of it where everything is flowing nicely, and rajasic is a little bit more energy, a bit more lively, if you like. And then tamasic is where there's a little bit more of lethargy. So it's just how these can be interpreted a little bit, if you like. It's different, it comes from different sort of branches, but that's one way of understanding it, is that the food that we eat as well impacts on the prana that we have. So the food that gives us the maximum prana are fresh foods that get direct sunlight, rather than things that grow underneath the soil or artificial or processed or that kind of thing. So that would include a lot of legumes and vegetables, and also pulses, actually, which is a protein which also helps. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about organs of sense and function. So you might have come across these terms before, but if you haven't, that's fine. So they are the motor organs are called the karma indriyas, and they are involved in various actions. So the mouth for the action of speech, the motor organ of grasping. So that's what makes our hand able to hold something. So a hand just by itself cannot do anything. So it's got to have something in it to make it actually able to grasp. And then a motor organ of locomotion. So that's the feet that help us to move. And then motor organ of excretion. So that's anus and rectum. And then motor organ of reproduction. So and then we move on to the jnana indriya. So the jnana is knowledge, if you like. So they help us to perceive some of the senses. So essentially, there is the physical eye, and then there is the prana, the life, if you like, the life force behind the eyes, which actually helps us to see. So if for example, somebody is blind, you will still see a physical eye. You might still see a physical eye, but then behind it there is no connection, and that's why people can't see. Similarly, people who are deaf, you can see their physical ear, but then whatever that power to be able to hear is not there. So. And also, I mean, it's the same for touch and taste, and for touch, like if the fingers are numb, completely numb or whatever, you will feel that there is no prana flowing, and therefore there is no sensation, and you can't really feel anything in that finger. So we've all possibly experienced this at some point in time, or different part of the body. So what is lacking there is actually the prana behind those physical those physical bits, if you like. So then there comes the mind, so which is both sensory and motor, and associated with sensory organs when sensory perception are taking place. So that these are happening, when these two are happening at the same time, then that's where the mind is also involved and come into play. So so that's the role of the mind in this, and that's another way of categorizing. So first there is the motor organs, and then the perception organs, and then when these two comes together, then this is associated with the mind as the associated with both the sensory organs as well as the perception. So now I wanted to talk a little bit about the various types of prana, or sub-pranas, if you like, and the term that some of you might have heard is vayus. So that's the Sanskrit term. So when we talk about prana, and then we talk about the 5 vayus, or sub-pranas, and slightly confusingly, one of the so there is the global term that is prana, and within prana there are various other sub-pranas, if you like, the subcategories, and one of them is called prana. So it's a little bit confusing. So there is the big prana, and then there is the small prana, if you like, which is one specific of the sub-prana. So these 5 main pranas are located in various parts of the body, and it's good to understand what they do and where they actually are. So prana is between the larynx and the diaphragm, and it affects mainly our breathing and respiratory system. So that's where mainly prana flows, and that's where it operates. So it's almost an upward force going that way. And then there is apana. So apana occurs below the navel. So that's where that occurs. So I haven't got a diagram for you, but it's just below the navel, and that's responsible, if you like, for defecation, urination, menstruation, so all excretion as well as procreation. It happens in that area, thanks to apana vayu, or apana. And then the third one that I'm talking about is Vyana. So sometimes the order is quite presented differently, and it doesn't really matter. And so Vyana pervades the whole body and coordinates all the other pranas. So it kind of so without Vyana, all the other pranas are will not be able to kind of operate together, and so therefore Vyana is responsible on the periphery for nerve impulses, so everything that goes to our limbs, so our arms, our feet, so just all these peripheries. So if you see the prana, or the prana and apana and udana and samana are around the abdominal area, and from procreation place to up to the head, if you like, and then Vyana is what takes the prana to all the extremities, so arms and legs. And then Udana Vayu is above the larynx, so it activates the sensory. It is responsible for upward activities like vomiting, talking, and thoughts get released due to Udana prana as well. So so sometimes, we use these things that things in our body just happen automatically. But I think we've discussed this quite a lot, that actually nothing happens automatically. So something must be there for something to happen. I mean, if we just, so here, all these things that we think happen is due to prana being present. And so our body, things like our body have got these amazing abilities, and it's this really wonderful piece of kit, and really beyond any marvel. And it's So when, you know, we eat something by accident or that we shouldn't eat, then it comes up. And that's the Udana Vayu that kind of makes that happen. And even talking, to be able to talk is comes from the Udana Vayu, and also thoughts. Then the last one is Samana Vayu, so that's in the abdomen, so that affects the digestion and the control over all the organs in the abdominal region. And what it also does is it balances prana and apana, so in this area. And then, so there are 7 flames that kind of are fed from it for the samana. So there are the 2 eyes and 2 ears, and the nostril and the mouth are things that are actually responsible for the samana vayu to happen. Okay, so now I wanted to talk a little bit about prana and death. So what actually happens. So before we do that, I just wanted to kind of bring in a few things. So here, the body can't live without sense organs, and we know that. And so there is a story in in 2 of the Upanishads actually saying, well, these are the way the stories are. So all the senses had assembled and was debated which is the greatest. So whether it is the sight, whether it is, you know, all these. And then they said, well, all were ready to quit for a year. And then, so the conclusion was that individual can survive with 1 motor organ and 1 sense organ, but then when prana decides to leave, then all the senses lose power. So really, without prana, nothing happens, and even the senses are not able to operate when the prana leaves the body. So this is just kind of, you know, to sort of say where all this is coming from as well. It's from the Upanishads. So at the time of death, it is the Udana prana which is responsible for ejection of the pranic body, or the subtle body. So there is the physical body, and then at the time of death, the subtle body and the causal body will leave the physical body, and it is actually the Udana prana which causes that ejection. So we talked about in the previous slide about Udana responsible for upward activities, ejecting things, and that's what happens at the time of death. The Udana prana kind of activates to release the subtle body and the causal body from the physical body. So Udana actually decides on the methods and time, but then, you know, there's a whole reason about how it happens and why it happens, but that's another level. So at the time of death, then there's also the other pranas that slowly starts failing or starts withdrawing. So there is so digestion also starts withdrawing the samana prana, and then the dhyana prana also withdraws, so for instance, a dead body or somebody who's about to die will have very cold hands, and that's the prana that's no longer flowing in the physical body. So the system becomes weak, and then there might be a bit of a brain fog as well, possibly, in things happening, and that's when Udana is packing up, ready to leave. And so this is just to kind of explain a little bit about what happens and the role of prana in the body and at the time of death. So now we've just looked at prana in the body and how we experience it, that we are all quite familiar with to a large extent. But now we're going to move on about prana in the universe. So actually, what is this prana that we feel in the body? What is this prana that is, you know, that we experience all the time? So So this is a really nice mantra, which is also sometimes used in before pranayam and before breathing. So it's nice, a nice mantra. And so it goes like this. So I'll just say it in Sanskrit first, and then we'll look at the meaning of it. Pranasyedam vashe sarvam didiveya pratishtitam madeva putran rakshasava shishcha prajnamscha videhina iti. So what it means is whatever exists in the whole universe is all under the control of prana. O Prana, protect us as a mother protects her child. Give us affluence and intelligence. So everything in the universe happens because of prana. So therefore, the whole universe is under the control of prana. So this is acknowledging this, and also as and it's a plea to say, protect us as a mother protects her child. Give us affluence. So affluence here doesn't mean money. So it's and intelligence. So I don't know. Sometimes I recite this mantra. I say it sometimes in English before we do one of the relaxation techniques in the yoga class. So there is the prana one where we kind of look at the prana moving through the body, and I always recite this one, but in English before we do this this relaxation. So I might do it tomorrow in class as well. So we've seen that, well, prana is the energy that vitalizes the matter in life. So everything, so there is matter, and matter is just on its own. And then without the prana, then there is no life in anything. So prana is expressed in sentient objects and beings, so like us, plants, animals, but prana is also present in inanimate objects, but then it is in a dormant state. So prana is also there, but then it is dormant. And so total energy behind fire and makes it burn behind the sun. So that's what prana is. So prana is actually making everything happen. So prana is the lord of clouds, rains, movements of winds. So everything happens because of prana that's moving. And even whether it will rain today or not is prana. So prana is the truth behind all forms and the formless. And prana is greatest in the individual. And so Hiranyagarbha is greatest at the cosmic level. So I'll just spend a little bit of time here explaining this. So we all know that Brahman or Atman is, or what is commonly referred to as consciousness here. Not the physical consciousness, but consciousness is what we all are. So I normally use the terms Brahman or Atman rather than consciousness, just to avoid any potential confusion with consciousness, as in lose consciousness, gain consciousness kind of thing. So so Brahman is formless and all-pervading. And so at any point in time, Brahman is present, and when the world is not there, is not manifested, all there is Brahman. That's all that exists. So that's that's just existence, knowledge, and bliss, as we call it. And but then what happens is when there is manifestation of the world, then there is the first being that's born, if you like. By being, I don't mean a physical being, so it's still formless, is Hiranyagarbha. So Hiranyagarbha is the manifestation of Brahman at the cosmic level. That is the whole that has the whole cosmic intelligence, if you like. So that's sometimes when we are talking about the universe, or that's what we mean. So So then from Hiranyagarbha is the next born is Vaishvanara, and then after that starts the process of grossification, which makes things visible. So the world then starts with the elements, and with further grossification, various things happen that actually make things start visible, and then the gods are created, and then various beings are created, and humans and plants are created first, and then animals, and etc. The whole system that we see, that's visible to us, that shows about life. So really, everything that is manifested in the world is Brahman manifesting. So it's not different from Brahman, it's just names and forms that is manifesting in the way that we see it, in the way that we perceive it. But it is only Brahman that is manifesting in this. So the whole world is Brahman. So there's nothing, it's not different. The world is not different from Brahman. It's just a different form or different manifestation of it. But the essence of the world is actually Brahman. So in previous lectures, we've seen about this idea of cause and effect. So the cause of everything is Brahman, and the effect is whatever we see. And so for an effect cannot happen by itself. So an effect cannot have independent existence. So for instance, the world doesn't have any independent existence. So the world depends, has to have an intelligent cause, if you like, for something to happen. So, and we've looked at that in quite a bit of detail, and we call it the Karya Karana Sambandh, which explains the fact that actually we are consciousness, and we are Brahman, and so that's where this comes from. So we are this pure Brahman, and we are, and that's, that's just the manifestation of Brahman is what we are. So I mean, we can discuss a little bit more about this if there are still some doubts around this concept. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that prana is the manifestation of Brahman, and that's what prana is. So prana is not different from Brahman, or not different from God in the sense of the creator, or not so not to be mistaken with whatever notions that we might have. So I'll just quickly go back to the senses. So I just wanted to bring that here for one reason. So essentially, when the world is created and is manifested in the way it is, so there are various illuminators, if you like, that are responsible for all this work that happens in the world. So there are various, they are called devas or devtas, that actually are responsible to make the world go in the way it is. So so for instance, and in Vedanta and in the Upanishadic tradition, so everything is God, everything is the manifestation of Brahman. Hence, everything is worshipped, because it is, so we are God, everything is God, everything is worshipped in that sort of way. So the devas are the ones that actually illumine our sense organs. So we talk about earlier on about the eye, the physical eye being there, but then there is also the power behind that eye, and that's the life that's directly manifestation of Brahman. And so here I mean, you might not have heard of any of this, but there are all these devtas or illuminators that make these various parts of our body function in the way that it does. So for the eyes, it is Surya, so that's the sun, and then there is the nose, that's Ashwini, and tongue, Varuna. And so for everything, for every function that happens within our body, it comes from Brahman. So nothing happens just because. So so that's the point that I wanted to kind of make. So the sense of I comes to experience the world through sense organs. So that's the ahankar, is the term that I've used before, or mistakenly or confusingly rather, sometimes we use the word ego, which is not very correct here. So ego just means this sense of I. So really, what I wanted to say is that prana is Brahman. Prana is the manifestation of the divine within us, and that's what we talk about. You know, we talk about the divinity inside us and what's inside us, but it is also important to understand where this comes from. So this is Brahman. This is the manifestation of Brahman through, and this is how because we said earlier on, it's formless. It has got no attributes and all these kind of things. So therefore, we experience this through the body, and we experience this through prana. Prana is how we experience this life. And that's why we kind of say, you know, life is divine, and all that kind of thing that we use and we say. So yeah, so now I wanted to sort of move a little bit away from this and talk about practices for the pranic body. So we talked about the prana and how it circulates within the human body. And one of the major practices for the pranic body is pranayam, so breathing exercises. And what happened here is a prana, so the vayu here, the small p, if you like, the sub prana is generated by the in breath, and apana by the out breath. So, and then there are impulses that are sent to and from the brain to nerve centers. And also in slightly more advance of pranayam or breathing exercises, there is retention. So we don't tend to do very much retention in class, but so retention is so when we're actually holding the breath. I mean, it needs to be done comfortably. So when that happens, the prana and the apana unite in the base chakra. And then that acts as a dynamo and sends a tremendous amount of energy upwards. So energy is stored at the base of the spine and in the bottom kind of the bottom chakra here is where the energy is stored. And then when we breathe in and when we breathe out, so this kind of this coming together kind of releases the energy from here, and it moves upwards. So that's what this one is saying. And then, so, I mean, retention, so some of the pranayam practices can be quite advanced. I mean, a lot of time, they're not recommended for people to do in normal daily life, but there's some that are very safe for us to do on a daily basis. And so even retention can be quite strong sometimes, and can have a lot of effect on people. So so if I guess my advice is just that if you're doing anything like that, is just to make sure that you're doing it under guidance of qualified teacher, and you know what you're doing, rather than actually just taking something from somewhere and then doing retention and all that kind of stuff, because it can be quite powerful, and there are various things that can happen if we don't know how to channel all these things. So the normal ones that we do in class are all very safe, and there's no problem with them. but as I said, there are like various degrees of them, of such practices. Then I wanted to talk about pranic healing. So pranic healing is where we're using prana to either to heal ourselves or to heal others. So so before I meant to mention this before I forgot. So prana in Vedanta or in the Upanishadic culture is what is what it's called, but in other Eastern contexts it's also called chi. So I don't know what else it might be called in other cultures, but it is pretty much the same. There is that notion everywhere. So pranic healing is only for those who practice pranayam and recharge the solar plexus. So the solar plexus is the chakra, is the place around the navel as well, where energy is stored also. And so essentially, when we are healing, we can use this to heal ourselves. And it is important to understand that we can also use it to heal others, but when we're healing others, it is extremely crucial to understand the point that it is not one's own prana that we are using. So it's not, we're not, if we do that, then we are depleting our own prana, and that will not work. So really what we're doing is we are just a channel for the prana from the universe to kind of flow through us to the person we're trying to heal, or whatever we're trying to heal. So this idea of it's not our own prana is very, very important. So it's the prana, the cosmic prana, if you like, that we are channeling, and that goes through us. So we are not the doer here. It's not our own prana, but it's just happening through us. We're just concentrating and connecting to the cosmic mind in such a way that this prana flows through us and reach somewhere else. So so sometimes, you might have seen something like people talk about miracles that happen that make a blind person see, and this is possible. And that's because of total connection between the individual and the cosmic intelligence that can actually channel that particular prana to make that happen. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these things that we might not be able to explain that, but there are explanations for them provided in the Upanishads. So which is where everything that I teach comes from. So then the next, so I think that's really what I wanted to talk about in terms of what prana is and how we experience it. And then, so I've got just a bit of a summary here of what we've discussed today. Is prana is the basis of everything. So prana is the life force that holds everything together in this world. We are able to communicate because of prana. The trees are able to breathe and produce oxygen because of prana. When we are asleep, our heart is still beating because of prana. So everything is because of prana. So matters move. So various activities that we see are expressions of prana. And so prana shakti, or the force of prana, if you like, is what makes fish swim, makes birds fly in spite of gravity. So some of these things that we see, and also when we have a pranic body that's kind of very well in tune, and the prana is flowing very nicely, the body kind of feels very light. So I'm not talking about lightness in terms of what the scales are saying, but the body kind of feels light. There is a sense of lightness in the body that that means that is a good indication of how the prana is working, or how our pranic body is working. And so we talk a lot about sense, or all of us of our senses, and the power behind all our senses. So the physical eye. So really, what, you know, if we are going to an ophthalmology department in the hospital, what they are actually treating is the physical eye. They're not treating the prana behind that eye that helps us see. So yeah, so again, we've seen that there is nothing but Brahman. Everything is the manifestation of Brahman, and everything comes from the Creator and just manifests in different forms. So the divinity in us that we recognize is the manifestation of Brahman as prana. So that's all I've got for today. So we will just conclude here for a moment. So closing your eyes. And inhale. Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you very much.